Let's roll with the first track from Labour of Love 1, Cherry O Baby, then we'll talk about it.
Cheerio, cheerio, baby. Don't you know I'm in love with you? If you don't believe it's true, what else is there for me to do? Look how long I've been waiting for you to come right in. And now that we are together, please make all my joys come over.
I'm going to talk about Labour of Love 1, and I imagine, guys, that song Cherry O Baby was quite different in terms of your fan base at that time in 1983 to come out with that sort of song. You'd been very political before, and it had been sort of down and dirty reggae. This is sort of uplifting love songs, Labour of Love. How was that perceived when it came out?
Well, it was mostly received really well. But some people hated the idea that we were doing covers. God knows why. It's not strange doing covers. It never has been. Reggae's full of covers. Everybody does covers. But when we did an album of covers to show everybody the reggae that we grew up on, the reggae that turned us on in the first place, from the early reggae rocksteady era, that was the album that we produced. And for the most part, it was very well received. It was only later on that people started criticising us as being a covers band. And it was probably generally because it was so successful.
Well, exactly. When you say well received, it was extremely well received by the audience. Not quite well received by the critics, but...
Although it got great reviews on the most part, it's only later on that people started going, oh, they became a covers band and all that. At the time, it got great reviews. I was reading a few last night, actually. I was going back and reading them, and they were brilliant reviews from the critics.
It's very Inikamosi, our version, but I didn't realise it until I've just heard it again.
Funny you should mention that, because the drum beat's quite distinctive, and I nicked that from Sly and Robbie's version of The Bed's Too Big Without You.
Oh, there you go then.
If you remember that tune. And
that was the whole thing, wasn't it? To modernise them and bring them up to, innit? Like, put our spin on them and make them our own.
Because we weren't a 60s or a early 70s band. We were an 80s band, so obviously it was going to sound different, wasn't it? Because of the influences and the sounds of reggae at the time that we were listening to. At the time we made the record was the early 80s. So, of course, the spin was going to be different, wasn't it?
We're interested in technology at the time because it was developing at that time. It was going from MIDI, there was MIDI developing, and then it went into digital. And we tried to keep abreast of that as best we could.
Just before samplers, I think, when it was before samplers, but as the end to sequencing and MIDI.
It's interesting. It's interesting, Robin, because if you were reading some of the same reviews that I was reading when I was doing my bit of research, you'll have found that some of the critics were actually saying what you've just said, that you still kept the original flavour of the song, but you brought it at that time into the 80s, which was modernising it, without doing it a disservice. And I also read that quite a few critics, I felt like they didn't want to like it based on what it was going to be, an album of covers. But after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 listens, they just said, we love it. That was sort of the general consensus of what was happening.
There's some great tracks on there, and obviously the material was great, and we loved them. And obviously we loved doing our versions and spin on them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The whole point of doing those tunes was because they were tunes that we knew and loved from our younger days. And the whole reason for doing them is because they're great tunes. Incidentally, that tune, funnily enough, was also covered by the Rolling Stones in 1976, I think, something like that.
Last question on Cherry O Baby. It's probably because it reached number 12 in the charts. It was the 4th single from the album. So it did very well, but it wasn't exactly a number 1. But that song you've toured, I would imagine almost at every single gig you've played for the last 40 years. Did you ever imagine, Earl, when you were putting it together, that would be, from the 10 tracks, that would be probably one of 2 that you were going to play for the rest of your lives?
Well, we have played it most gigs, but I don't think we played it on the last tour. Did we drop it on the last tour?
No, we've always played it.
We played it every
It's a very popular live number, isn't it? But
it's brilliant live.
The thing is, I wanted to release it as the second single, and I still believe that if we had released it as a second single, it would have been a much bigger hit on the back of Red Red Wine. it was released 6 months after the release of the album, you've got to remember. It had sold 1 million copies by the time we released that single. And it was a high-selling single. It still went top 10. And we'd already sold 1 million albums in the UK.
So everybody had it.
Exactly. So if that had been released as the follow-on single to Red Red Wine, I think we could have had another number one myself.